So thank you very much again to the Schiller Institute for this invitation and for having organized once again such a very interesting conference, and the speeches of the people that talked before me can confirm the fact that there is a community around the world, not only in Europe, in Africa, and in China, that is thinking about a better future for our people in the world. Today, I would like to talk about the future of Europe, because it's clear that something is not functioning well in this continent, and it's clear that what is happening not only at a political level, and we are in Germany, and the actual debate about the future government of this country is the sign that something is going wrong, but also the situation that we are living at the economic, macroeconomic level, and the fact that the European Union is not able to address and to solve the three main challenges and problems that European citizens are living today. The first one, the most debated, is clearly the economic and financial crisis that is still live in our continent. The second is the problem of internal security and all the problems related to terrorism. And the third one is the problem related to the management of migration flows that are affecting a lot of countries, and especially my country, Italy, because our geographical position as the bridge of the European continent in the Mediterranean area. It's pretty clear that we have to challenge the rhetoric that the European establishment campaigned in the last 20 years, so that there is no alternative to the European Union, that the European Union is a political infrastructure that should remain the same also in the future. That's why we have to challenge this rhetoric. This superstate, this institutional framework for Europe is not able to solve problems, is not able to create better conditions for European people, and is not able to fulfill the promises that European politicians did especially after the end of the Cold War at the end of the 80s. So it's time today for new European political class to think about what could be a project for Europe that is alternative and that could challenge the actual framework of the European Union. As I said, we are challenging, and me personally, as representative of European and Italian people in the European Parliament, I'm trying to challenge in this TINA rhetoric, because we need an alternative institutional framework for the European people. Let me clarify one very important thing. The European elites are trying to use the European Union term as something that is close or is comparable to Europe. I would like to stress the fact that, in my opinion, the European Union and Europe are two very different concepts. Europe is a geographical, historical concept that comprehends a lot of countries. The European Union is a political infrastructure, political framework that has been founded in 1957. So it's here, and it was present only for a short time of period compared to the history of Europe. So and it comprehends only 28 countries that are a huge part of countries in Europe, but they are not the totality of countries and people living today in Europe. Today, as I say, the European Union is not only failing in addressing problems of people in the continent, but the policies and the political framework of the European Union is also stressing these problems. The policies and the rules that we are applying and that they built in the European Union in the last 20 years are creating divergences, asymmetries, not only between countries, between the countries participating to the Union and to the Eurozone, but also between people inside the same country. And Germany is one of the best example of what is happening at country level with this European Union framework. The people, the poor people, or the, let's say, the majority of people are negatively affected by the rules agreed at the European Union level, and the elite are strengthening their powers to shape European legislation to protect their interests. This situation is causing sufferances not only in the so-called PIGS, Southern European countries, but as I said, also in the core European countries, such as Germany, the Netherlands, or the Scandinavian countries. And the political situation of these countries is the proof of this situation. People in Germany in the last election decided not to support more traditional parties, Social Democrats and the Christian Democrats of Mrs. Merkel, and they decided to support so-called populist, Eurosceptic parties, right-wing and right-left and left-wing parties. So the strong support that AfD and also the liberals, the FDP, got in the last German election is a sign that also people and voters of the country that took the biggest benefits from European rules and the Eurozone framework now are challenging the future of this project, because this project, the Eurozone and the European Union rules, are negatively affecting their lives. The economic situation of people living in the former Eastern Germany is really bad. Unemployment is very high. People is living with transfers, money transfers from the central state and richer regions, and the situation is very bad and is comparable to the situation of other member states, such as Italy. In Italy, we are still coping with a lot of problems in terms of youth unemployment. The youth unemployment rate in Italy is close to 40%, an unacceptable rate. The total unemployment is really stabilizing close to 11–12%, another unacceptable level. And the U6 indicator, that is a macroeconomic labor market indicator that the ECB is also using to assess better the situation in the labor market of the Eurozone country. So this rate in Italy is the highest in the European Union. It's close to 30%. That means that we have 30% of our working population that is under stress. And the policy of the European Union and the Eurozone are not addressing this problem. and are strengthening differences and asymmetries inside the countries. Another problem that we are facing is the problem related to our financial system and to our banking system. It's a huge debate inside the European Union what should be the future of our financial institutions after the big financial crisis in 2008 and after the sovereign crisis that affected the Eurozone in 2010. The European institutions decided to set up a very comprehensive set of new rules trying to regulate the banking industry in the Eurozone. This huge amount of rules, this new framework was called Banking Union. And the Banking Union was based on 3 pillars. The first one is a common supervision of the biggest financial institutions in the European Union. The second framework is the second pillar is the so-called bail-in rule, is the single resolution mechanism, so a unique mechanism at the European level that should intervene to resolve banking crises when one of those big institutions will go to trouble. And the third pillar that is not agreed, we are working on it, is the common deposit insurance for all the banking union countries. It's clear that this new framework is not functioning well because the biggest mistake of this framework was to try to create a regulation that will cope with the consequences of a financial and banking crisis without doing nothing to try to set up instruments and tools to cope and to avoid the causes of a financial crisis. And this new framework of rules created more instability in the financial sector inside the Eurozone, because now not only taxpayers, as happened in the past, have to, let's say, participate to the bailout of a big financial institution, but also savers and common people that invested in their savings in financial products, in bank bonds, in deposits, or in other very plain financial instruments. They have also to participate to the bail-in of bank institutions. The European politicians in 2012, when the banking union was agreed, they promised that with the banking union, no more taxpayers' money would have been used to save big financial institutions. What happened in the reality, and we have 3 years now of experience with more than 10 banks that have been resolved accordingly to the new banking union framework. What happened was that not only taxpayers had to participate to the resolution of banks, but also common people and savers that were mis-selling with financial products had to participate to this. In Italy, in 2017, we had 2 very big financial problems related to our banking system. One was the sadly famous resolution and save of Banca Monte dei Paschi di Siena, that was one of the first banks in the world, it was founded at the end of the 15th century, and it operated in Italy and all around Europe since that date. And the other one was the resolution of two regional banks, but that were very important because they were located in one of the most industrialized and developed region in Italy, Veneto. And I'm referring to the resolution of Banca Popolare di Vicenza and Veneto Banca, two Venetian banks that have been resoluted in April 2017. The cost of the resolution of these two banks was very high. More than 20 billion of taxpayers' money have been used to save these two banks, and more than 15 billion euros in shareholders' value, in bondholders' value, have been used to save this bank. It's clear that this framework cannot be efficient in making our financial system more resilient, more effective in supporting the real economy, more effective in supporting public and infrastructure investment, more supportive in assuring strong support for European citizens in pursuing their entrepreneurial activities, and so on. It's clear that we need a different framework. So the big question that we are working on, and that is very important for the future of Europe, is that one. Is the European Union the best institutional framework that we can create or that we can have in Europe in order to address these very important problems that European citizens are facing today? Okay, so looking at what happened in the last 20 years, and accordingly to my experience in the European institution in the last 4 years, my reply would be no, clearly no, because the European Union today and the rules that we agreed at the European Union level today is impeding member states and governments in addressing properly the problems and that European people is living. So what can we do in order to challenging the European Union? There is no alternative rhetoric that European institutions and European leaders are using today to justify their failure, but to take more time in order to go on with this failing project. We have to create a new institutional framework that will start from the core of the European democracy, that is member states. So we have to give back to member states powers in order to shape the right mix of policies to cope with the crisis today. That means give back to member states the power to set up their monetary policies, the power to set up the right mix of fiscal policies that they want. It's clear that a one-size-fits-all approach cannot work, and is not working. A unique monetary policy for 19 different countries that are facing 19 different economic cycles cannot work. Today, Germany probably would need less accommodative monetary policy. Germany will need to have interest rate rising. Germany will need the end of quantitative easing. But it's clear that Italy and other countries will need the continuation and the increase of the quantitative easing and more time of accommodative monetary policy. The fact that we agreed, and I'm going to conclude with this point, that we agreed public budget balanced rule is impeding European countries and government to dedicate appropriate resources for infrastructural investment. And that is not happening only in Italy, but also in Germany. Public investment in infrastructure in Germany are at the low. They are not recovering after the financial crisis. So it's clear that we have to create new framework of rules in Europe in order to challenge this European Union framework that is failing in addressing European countries' policies. And we have to create another Europe that will be the bridge between the Asian countries, the developing countries, the new world powers that are approaching the elite, and the United States. That's a role that Europe can do. But with this policy, with these provocations that the European Union is facing in front of Russia, with this new common defense project, with the NATO putting a lot of military forces at the border with Russia, with provocation, the future of the Europe and European countries will be really, really tough. So we have to regain our sovereignty. We have to give back powers to the member states, not only in terms of fiscal policy and monetary policy, but also in terms of diplomacy. And we have to coordinate all the European sovereign countries in order to create a more positive political scenario for Europe and for our historical partners also outside Europe. Russia, Turkey, Iran, China, African countries, Egypt, and a lot of those developing countries that will be very important to create and to set up a cooperative win-win approach that could benefit not only Italian people, not only European people, but people worldwide in order to ease conditions and to create also development and opportunities for people in a continent as Africa is, in order to stop these migration flows that are affecting also the European Union. Thank you very much for your time.